found out that Burkle's closest pal was P. Diddy. In fact, the evidence is out there. Anybody could go search it. Ron Burkle is the godfather to P. Diddy's children.
Oh my God.
He also invested $100 million in Diddy's company, Sean John. My opinion is this could be getting information on celebrities and people of wealth and power so they can be compromised and controlled. How is it possible that more money is being poured in to the homeless issue now than any time in history, yet the homeless population is growing at the same time? Tell me, how is that possible? The first thing I would attack is, as I would say, there should never be a veteran or a senior on the street, period,
No.
End of story. After the votes are counted, then you can put it through machine. Democrats and Republicans are both fighting against those systems. The only reason to fight against the systems is because you want a manipulated election.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Today we host Louis Herms, founder of Screw Big Gov and a true fighter for we the people. Louis is running for governor of California, and he's well known for tackling issues head on and making the impossible a reality. In this explosive conversation, Louis steps into his role as a truth teller, exposing bombshells like how Hugh Hefner's mansion was a honeypot for the CIA, unveiling sinister connections between P. Diddy and Ron Burkle and the purchase of the Neverland Ranch. We challenge the official narratives of both the 9/11 investigation and the JFK assassination, and tackle political corruption by proposing simple solutions for election integrity and the homeless crisis. Finally, Louis shares his urgent plan to make California autonomous and solving the state's massive waste problem. You guys, just imagine if in 10, 12 years, I ran for governor of California. This is the guy. You guys got to hear him to believe him. He is the man. Sit back and enjoy this conversation. So, you are literally the first true politician, well, any politician I've ever had on my show. So the amount of alignment between what you talk about, the things that you've been involved in, and the stuff that I love to talk about on my show and create video and content around is just astonishing. And I understand you are running for governor of California. And we're going to get into your platform and your politics. But, first of all, welcome to the show. Thank you for beaming in. Louis Herms, everybody. It's a great pleasure and an honor to have you. I thought, maybe a good place to start with, we're going to get into the politics, but I've heard about these incredible stories you have. And, you've experienced and been witness to a great many things that, people love to dismiss and imagine is just not happening, is not real. I thought what better place to start to grab our audience and keep them for a while. So, I understand you know a little more about Hugh Hefner than most of the public. Are you okay starting there? Is that cool?
Absolutely. I don't even need to wear my tinfoil hat for this part.
Awesome.
And I don't know Hugh Hefner personally, but I did a lot of study on this because I've done a lot of study on MKUltra and so on and so forth.
Mm.
And I believe Hugh Hefner was a CIA honeypot asset, is what I believe it really was. And I know some people have been at the mansion, so on and so forth. And through another person, I know somebody that was actually honeypotted at the mansion. And then he had to make a payoff to make sure his pictures didn't come forward. So they couldn't compromise him enough for him to be under control, but they compromised him enough where he had to cut a check. So
Wow.
That's the games that they do. So to me, it's sinister, right? I do believe he was a CIA asset. So how did I get there? That's probably the questions. And I always go back when I look into things, I go back to what the origins of this stuff, right? And I know in 2009 there was a whistleblower lawsuit from Laurel Aston, and she actually claimed that Hefner was a CIA programmer. I'm like, wow, okay, so maybe I'm on to something here. And She says he's a CIA, her quote, CIA handler and right? That's her quote. Of course, that disappeared, right?
Mm.
I believe he's run MKUltra. He's a super assassin has run ops. And if people go, "Oh, that's crazy," and right now they're like, "How could a gubernatorial candidate talk about that?" Because I was once Faust considered a conspiracy theorist, and now I'm a truth teller. So it's amazing how we go through that transition. 5 years ago, even I couldn't talk about some of these things without being called crazy. Now people are like,
Right.
maybe he has something here. So here's how I derived at that. Um, and I think it's pretty interesting. So I'm going to go deep right away.
Okay.
You've heard of Adrenochrome.
Of course.
Okay. So Adrenochrome is it's actually a compound that when isolated, right? They've renamed it the white rabbit. And
I didn't know that.
it's harvested from victims that are, they're adrenalized blood and so on and so forth. And I know on some platforms I don't go too deep into this, so I know how to parse my words if
Right.
it helps out here. But the symbolization for that is they have a color code and it's pink and red. That's the symbolization. Which, if you noticed, Hefner's bunnies were always pink and he always wore red.
Mm.
Right? So I find that fascinating. And you can tie that right in. That's the Playboy vibe, right? Is it coincidence? Maybe. Let's just consider it coincidence right now. But then you go into more stuff. So in 1942, the OSS was formed, and that's the Office of Strategic Services, right?
Precursor to the CIA.
Exactly. And that was an executive order from FDR. So, but at that time, even they were known for experimenting with drugs for interrogation. And they actually they had a super assassin enhancement program, right? And as you just said, that's the precursor to the CIA. So I'm setting the stage for the dark ops here and where Hefner ties in. And here's what's interesting. When I was doing my research, I said, let me go deep. And I actually found his picture in a graduation book from the University of Illinois. And here's what'll get you. It says his name right there. It says Hugh Marston Hefner, and he was in, this is amazing, the Division of Special Services Psychology.
Wow.
And we know now that the CIA has done massive recruiting through colleges, right? This guy was clearly in a CIA type operation being trained in college. He's in the Division of Special Services Psychology. I'm like, okay, so that's when it started all coming together for me, right? So he'd be perfect for a high level CIA asset. So then you go a little bit deeper and say, is there any connections? Now, when I'm doing the digging, I'm always trying to keep a very open mind on this, but I also am exploring ideas. So in 1951, right after that, Disney's Alice in Wonderland dropped, right? What do they have in it? They have the White Rabbit, right? And that became Playboy's future mascot.
Oh, shit.
Think about this, how this all runs together.
Oh, my God.
Right? 2 years after that, 1953, CIA launches the MKUltra mind control program, right? Just happens to be the same year Hefner starts Playboy with the first issue.
Wow.
Now, remember, Marilyn Monroe was on the first issue. Now, he only had $8,000 to start this magazine, yet he got Marilyn Monroe to be on the cover of the first issue.
Wow.
Things add up. Oh, but the symbolism, I believe, is their downfall. What is inside of it? The first appearance of the White Rabbit is inside that magazine. And to me, that's the tilt towards Adrenochrome. They're literally telling you what they're going to do.
Right. And there's people out there who imagine that this is a mythical drug. and not a real substance because of the way that we're told that it has to be produced. And to them, I simply say, read Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
He's writing literally about a briefcase full of him and his lawyer brought to Vegas, and among those included in great detail, as Hunter S. Thompson was a phenomenal writer, is chrome. They had a dropper full, and they take it and they describe its effects, just like he describes the effects of the other drugs that he did in Vegas, and that was written way back. I think in the was it the 70s? I think it had to be the 70s, before the cat was out of the bag about this adrenochrome.
Right.
And now probably wouldn't have been able to get the book published, but he never minced words himself. So like that tells you that it was real back then. It's real today, regardless of what the mainstream media would have you believe.
No, you're dead on. And what's interesting, back to the Hugh Hefner thing, then he spent the next 20 years doing what? Creating Playboy nightclubs
Yep.
all over the world, where he
Mansion.
had the top people in there. He had Sinatra in there, Lennon in there. I mean, you name it, right? These are
Mm,
this to me. It's so obvious that these are honeypot operations where he was capturing and compromising. This is way before Epstein,
right.
right? So, and it's just fascinating. I don't know why people didn't pick up on this, but then you go in 71, he built the Playboy Mansion. And he
Mm,
adds the grotto, right? And there's a rumored tunnel system under there. It's not a rumor. I have pictures of it. There's pictures
wow.
of the tunnels under the Playboy Mansion. There's also one that I found that I don't know if anybody's ever found before, which I think is fascinating. He has an actual door that opens up and looks down right into the grotto.
Wow.
And I have a picture of that looking at people into the grotto, which is
Wow.
amazing. But he has some scandalous things. It- and I wrote this one down for you because I knew you were going to ask about it. So I wrote this. So it's in 75. Brooke Shields' mom forced her 10-year-old daughter to pose,
Oh my God.
but people may not know this. Hefner is the one that purchased the photos and he published them in 1976 when she was only 11, but on 10-year-old pictures.
Wow.
So who protected Hefner? That right there would be illegal, but somebody
But what
protected.
it wasn't illegal then? Were the laws not clear?
No, it was illegal then, but nobody did anything because why? Because he has so much power in my opinion, and he had control because he was running a operation.
Yeah. What's going on? I mean, there's the number one documentary right now on Netflix is the documentary about P. Diddy. What was he doing? I mean, does anyone imagine for a single moment that he was allowed to run that kind of an operation without direct oversight, if not encouragement from our intelligence agencies? If you do
Oh yeah,
imagine that, you don't understand the level of surveillance and intelligence we have in this country. That is classic honeypot. And that's why he's not going to do any true time. I mean, he's going to do a little bit, but not compared to what he's done. I mean, obviously, another inside job, let's say.
I've got a lot of dirt on P Diddy, but
Oh,
what's
I bet.
interesting is as soon as the FBI picked him up and they sent him over to the Southern District of New York, I knew this was a cover-up operation.
Yep.
It was not an operation to get P Diddy.
Yep.
That
Oh,
that
yeah.
moment, literally when they were going through his house, I go, "This is a cover-up operation. That's what this is all
That's
about."
exactly what I said too. When you know the game, it's the playbook becomes obvious. But so this is so cool because you're running for governor, and
I've heard about that.
and we're going to get into the issues that you're passionate about. But you many years you've spent exposing corruption, hidden agendas, predictive programming, and this is just like one of the many stories that you've come into through your research and through your passion about bringing the truth to people. And I know that another one we can get into is, and this may resonate more with people who are familiar with California and its history, but the Green Acres Mansion, I heard, is another one that you have kind of firsthand experience and knowledge about. But maybe a lot of people don't know they've heard of the Green Acres Mansion, but they're not quite familiar with the history. Do you mind getting into that a little bit with us?
Oh, I love to. This is very
Awesome.
compelling, and I've been there, and I have inside information on this that will absolutely knock people's socks off. And it's scary to understand that we're even to this point.
Mm.
So what happened is in I think it was 93-ish, I'll say. It's right around there. I was a troubleshooter for the largest commercial plumbing and drain cleaning company in California. And a troubleshooter means if they run into problems that they can't figure out, they would send me or my buddy in there. Out of the whole company, we were the only two, and we would have to travel a lot because we had this level of knowledge to fix stuff that other people couldn't figure out. So we got a call, right? And the call was very interesting. It came from the owner, and it says, "I like you," and I'm not going to mention his name, but my buddy to go there together and assess this property.
Mm.
And this property was being purchased by Ron Burkle, and Ron Burkle was a grocery store magnate at the time. So we had his actual properties that we would manage the plumbing and drain cleaning for it. I found out later that he specifically requested us to be there.
Wow.
Now, interesting enough, the reason for us to be there, we found out, was because he wanted us to reduce the price on what he was paying for the mansion. So we needed to find as many problems as we could. And we were there for a long time, well over a week.
Oh, wow.
So what happened is when we pulled up to this mansion, we kind of didn't know what we were getting into. And, they had the gates closed out. In fact, even on Google today, that front gate is completely blocked off. You know how they shadow it out or blur it out. So that's completely blocked off. We go in, we're like, we think we're going to go into see this big, huge property. No, we had to make a left turn, and they had a wall with inside of a wall.
Wow.
Very protected. And then right when we passed the two walls and went into the opening, it opened up into this beautiful area with a fountain in the middle of it. And immediately security was on us.
Wow.
And they wanted to escort us around. Now the house was vacant, but they have a security house right there.
Mm.
So clearly we're like, wow, this is very interesting. Why would a grocery store magnate need all this, right? That's the first thing we're thinking of. Okay, so we find out what we're supposed to do, and we start going through it, and it ends up, this is a 45,000 square foot mansion, and it ends up that he got a $19 million discount on the property. So it was being sold for $39 million. He bought it for 20.
Wow.
So we thought this was a little weird. We started going through the mansion, and it was incredible, though. Outside of the mansion, there was a miniature home, a miniature house that we had to crawl in to get in there, and it actually has operational plumbing. So it had a miniature sink, a miniature toilet, and it was for children. And in addition to that, they had a full-size horse carousel, something like you would see on Santa Monica Pier, in the backyard. They had a lot of this stuff. Now, to be very upfront and honest, at the time, I was just thinking, you know what? Probably some famous people lived here. They didn't want to subject their kids to public, so they made sure they gave their kids as much fun stuff that they could. That was my justification at the time. So we started going around this house, and my friend and I were very curious. Let's put it this way, right? My wife would call me a travieso, mischievous, right? But we were very curious at the time. So we're going all this house. Now, the whole time, we had two security guys following us everywhere, literally following us everywhere. And we didn't understand why. The house is vacant. So I called up Ron Burkle myself. And I said, Mr. Burkle, I said, are you looking to spend more money or are you looking to spend less money? He goes, Louis, that's a ridiculous question. I want to spend less money. I said, well, you should call off the dogs. They're tripping over cords. They're slowing us down. We're just trying to investigate everything to make sure. He goes, you're right. No problem. So he called off the security.
Wow.
Now, He didn't know that our intention was we wanted to explore the property without them knowing what we're doing, and we did.
Right.
So we went through around the whole property, and they, had long fountains and a tennis court and everything. We found a secret gate in the back of this property, and it's so secretive that when we left that day, we decided to drive around where that gate would have entered, and we finally found it. It was hidden with bushes
Wow.
from the outside. You couldn't even tell. And you would have to drive up a curb, and sure enough, we walked up. Well, you can see how they would get into the gate with their lock or whatever. But all of that was hidden by bushes. So when you're driving by on the street, nobody would have a clue. And this went to the back of the property. Here's what's ironic: that street to this day on Google Maps is unnamed.
Mm.
And I've never seen an unnamed street on Google Maps before.
Wow.
And I even went to Google Pro, which gives me more information. It's completely unnamed.
Mm.
So at the time, we're not thinking much of it. We're thinking this is very interesting. Wow, maybe some famous people go here. So we decided to go, in the house and do some more work. They have 2 full-size kitchens in there. And when I say full-size, I'm like restaurant-style kitchens.
Mm.
So they never have to cater food in. They can make everything here. These humongous ovens. That was suspicious for us.
Wow.
Like, why would they need that?
Yeah.
We find out later why they needed all of this, by the way. So we're walking through upstairs. They have what I call a black room, where there's a black pool table, black pictures on the wall. You go into the restroom, Faust, and there's actually a black urinal with gold fixtures on it, black sinks with it,
Wow.
and what I call a Masonic floor.
Yeah, the checkered.
Black and white checkered floor.
Mm.
At the time, I had no clue. At the time, I'm thinking, wow, these people are extraordinarily
Interesting taste. Yeah.
right? And it's weird. So then we go in and we're searching around. Now, remember, back then they didn't have cameras in the house. Security didn't have a clue what we're doing because they're in the house, and they're in their house, the security house. And we see this amazing, gorgeous library, just like the libraries you would see in the movies in a mansion. They had the ladder that goes to the ceiling that rolls across it to get the books on the half shelf.
Wow.
And I joke with my friend. I said, I wonder if one of these doors opened up to a secret door. He's like, you're funny. So I'm looking through and I go, bro. He says, what? I go, there's a crack between this. He goes, it's nothing. I go, so I start pushing on it.
Yeah.
And it pops in and then it pops out.
Wow.
And I go, what are you?
Secret
and
door.
He says, what are you doing? I go, you need to stand over here and guard watch. Right? In case anybody starts to come. He goes, you're not going in there. I go, let's see. So there was a door behind the door, and it opened. I'm like, heck. And it went down the stairs, kind of catacomb down the stairs. Yeah. I said, let's do this. He goes, you're crazy. We can't do this. I go, let's just do it. They don't have a clue. He goes, all right. So we go in, we close that door behind us.
Right.
The library door, so they don't have a clue. And then we close the inner door also.
Wow.
And we went down. While we're walking down the stairs, we're smelling this huge stench of cedar.
Mm.
I mean, and see, now I checked later with my buddy, who is the premier dog trainer when it comes into finding cadavers and so on and so forth. He's literally the best. And he said back then they would not know how to train their dogs to move forward when they smelled something like cedar. The dogs would back off. I said, interesting. Wow. This will all come into play here. So we get down to the ground. So now we're in a tunnel beneath this property. And it has cedar shelves, both sides, packed up. They look like shoe shelves. Nothing was on them, right? The house was vacant. But it was about 30 feet long. We're like, why this is so long? Was Imelda Marcos lived here? We couldn't figure it out. So we went past the shelves, and to the right there was a door opened up, and there was a what we would see now could be normal in some more expensive houses, full theater. They had full theater seating, everything underneath there. You go down a little bit farther, and there was a single lane bowling alley underneath it, and there are a lot of toys for kids and so on and so forth. And then you go down a little farther. Now there's a door with a massive lock on it that we could not get past.
Wow.
So I don't know where that went. Now I've done a lot of research, and obviously we now know that certain celebrities had tunnels that went to certain houses, so on and so forth.
Right.
And I just tell people they should really look into the Getty Museum if you really want to go down that rabbit hole. So we did all of that, Faust, which is interesting, and it was fascinating and all. But here's what happens years later, which blows me away. So years later, I'm in the construction business and I'm doing work for somebody. And she is the ex-wife of one of the most famous entertainers of all times. And she's a very wonderful lady, and we're talking, so on and so forth. And this is where the connections come on, which just blow me away. And I just happened to mention this mansion in Beverly Hills. Oh, by the way, I didn't know it was Green Acres at the time.
Oh, you didn't?
I did not know the nickname of it. Right. So we're talking, and she says, "You're talking about Green Acres." And I said, "I don't know." I said, there's this Burkle guy that owns it. And she turned white. She just went white. And I go, "What's going on?" She goes, "Wow." And she hesitated to tell me. And then she says, "Let me tell you what used to happen." She goes, "I was good friends with his wife. And the reason why Burkle purchased this house is because he wanted to get into Hollywood. And now he is a famous movie producer. Go figure. And so he made a deal with the previous owner. And the deal was, if I purchase this house, I will guarantee to continue in perpetuity this charity event that you hold here at this house every year." The charity event was the huge Democrats would come there, very, very prominent Democrats, and virtually all of Hollywood. So he knew that was his in to get in there. She said what happened, and this is in the 90s while Bill Clinton was still in office. She says they would do this charity event, right? Clinton would be there and other famous people.
Shocker, yeah.
And everybody would leave except Bill Clinton. He would send his Secret Service Team A away and bring in Secret Service Team B. So I know somebody that was in the Secret Service, and I said, is that true or is that BS? He goes, "It's 100% true." He says, "That's exactly the way the Clintons operated. Both of them operated that way. They had their A team, which is the known team, and they had their B team, which is the people that won't tell on them." Right? So Secret Service Team B came in while Clinton was telling everybody that he was Martha's Vineyards for a week. He was not. He was at this house called Green Acres.
Wow.
And she was later told so Burkle would send his wife and this lady away on these exotic vacations for a couple weeks out of the country, completely out of the country. So they didn't know what was going on. So I cannot fault them.
Right.
They didn't know what was going on. But what happened is she said she heard later, and I believe it may have been from the security guard, that as soon as they ushered them away and Secret Service Team B came in, young women came in, or young I should say, through that back gate that I talked about.
Wow.
And then sometimes they did not see them leave, which that's scary in itself. But let's tie that into the tunnels that were below the ground.
Yeah.
Oh, but it gets bigger. So then I really started to do the research, and I found out that Burkle's closest pal was P. Diddy.
Oh, my God.
In fact, the evidence is out there. Anybody could go search it. Ron Burkle is the godfather to P. Diddy's children.
Oh, my God.
And this is the way it works. He also invested $100 million in Diddy's company, Sean John, which in my opinion at the time was probably not even worth $5 million.
No.
Because this is how they do it. So this is an opinion. I have to be very specific about this. My opinion is this could be a type operation of getting information on celebrities and people of wealth and power so they can be compromised and controlled. That's an opinion of
It's an educated one.
Right. And there's a lot more that goes along with this. I've went so deep into this. It's crazy. Oh, by the way, Guess who owns Neverland Ranch?
Who owns it now?
Ron Burkle.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So
Surprise.
sometimes are definitely too many coincidences for
Right.
it just to be nothing, and for me running as a candidate talking like this, it's because I'm just believe in authenticity. That's
Right.
why they call me the anti-politician, because I'm not. In fact, politics disgusts me. I want to
Yeah, me
throw
too.
up anytime somebody calls me a politician, like you did, Mr. Faust, at the beginning. I just get this in my throat, because that's what I'm fighting against. I'm fighting against this corruption and this disgusting
Yeah.
stuff that we have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah. We have the same opinion about politicians. That's a whole can of worms we could talk at length about for hours. Just the system itself is all corrupting and all persuasive. And it's because of operations like you're talking about. I think first and foremost, the reason why it's like impossible to get congressmen or actual representatives whose conscience and loyalty lies with the people that elected them and not the lobbyists who are bribing them and blackmailing them. The reason why we have such a problem is because those two things have become absolutely legal, like they're part and parcel. So we have maybe one or two, I mean, I like Massey. I like Thomas Massey. Of course, Trump goes out of his way to try to destroy him because he won't take money from AIPAC, and he's always outing the shenanigans that are uselessness of both parties and how they're just bought and sold. But what do you think about Massey?
Both parties are bought and sold.
Absolutely.
I like a lot about Massey. I do think that there's something else going on there. I
Yeah.
believe there's an intentional game going on between Massey, Trump, and MTG. You know what I mean? So it doesn't all add up to me. APAC turns my stomach, and
Me too.
anybody that's taking money from APAC, I have to put suspicious on. All I care about is we the people, and as a fellow guy that has tattoos,
Nice.
that's all
Nice.
it says is we the people. So when I shake somebody's hand, right, they understand that they're not going to compromise me, because my
Right.
allegiance is to we the people,
I love that.
first and foremost.
I love that. Yeah, I'm sure there is something more going on with that. And obviously MTG is out now, which shouldn't come as a surprise considering the stance she took on Israel and the things she was saying. It's hard to last long in our political environment with those types of stances. I mean, learning what we just learned about Candace Owens, and she came from politics, and even she's being targeted now. But you
and I can do a whole nother show on that, by the way.
and we're gonna have to, I think, because there's just so much we can talk about. I know I did a lot of videos. I was researching 9/11, and I stumbled upon all these pictures of these toasted cars, right? And I was like, and when I first saw them, I thought this was like right after Maui, California, and I thought, I was like, I must have clicked on the wrong thing here. Like, am I looking at the wrong folder? Am I looking at the folder I put together for the wildfires in Maui?
Yep.
But no, these, I looked, there was city buses, and these were pictures taken about, I want to say approximately half a block to a block away from the World Trade Center on 9/11. And these cars were, I mean, you couldn't even recognize some of them as former cars. They were melted slags. Others were like flipped on top of one another. Like that, it's really hard for me to imagine the kind of physics that went on. Like, we know there was no, there wasn't an atomic fireball that went up the city blocks. We saw the collapse. We know it degraded essentially, because what was left was not a pile of 110-story building, but maybe 2 stories of dust. And then they came up with a whole story about, the steel was transported right out and shipped to China, sold to China. And I'm like, y'all would have been able to see that, take pictures of it if that was the case. That's a misdirect, I think, in my opinion, from the government, because they don't. If you look at the cars, they look like the cars in Maui. They look like the cars in the California fires. And if you watch Dr. Judy Wood's presentation on this, you see that literally, physically, the towers never hit the ground. Those steel beams. I mean, besides the controlled demolition that was all in all likelihood done, they also were not taking any chances, because having researched the Oklahoma City bombing,
Mm-hmm.
Anybody with knowledge of controlled demolition could take one look at that building. They don't even have to be on site, and they weren't allowed on site, of course. But you could just look at the pictures and they can say, I can tell you it's a controlled demolition because they're right there, right there, right there, right there, right there, right there. And they were not going to make that same mistake with the trade centers. So in my opinion, they also hit it with DEWs, and the cars are a large testament to that, because how the do you melt cars into slag a block from the World Trade Center, and you have reporters walking by it, and they're like, "Wait, the explosion must have." They can't explain it, so they sound a little crazy because they don't even know what they're looking at. You have like cars on top of buses, and it's just like, well, like what the King Kong walked through here, and like, or Godzilla, and then he melted it with his. It's insane. But I know that you outed something during the Palisades fires that I think you were one of the first people to make this connection about the smart meters. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. In fact, what it was, well, let's go back to 9/11 though. This is my
Okay.
wheelhouse. I'm loving
Okay.
this
Okay.
way. So, 9/11, I think it's fascinating. There's over 3,500 engineers and architects that already said that the story that is being told is 100% wrong. It doesn't exist. It had to be some form of demolition or a direct weapon. In fact, the key gentleman on that, Richard Gage, was saying controlled demolition. Now is saying maybe there was a do also that had something to do with this, right? Because they did find thermite on site, so I understand where his original went.
Yeah.
So what I do with 9/11 is I really believe in the Socratic method. And at first, I had trouble waking people up under the theory that this may not be what they think it is. So what I've done is I start to ask questions, and I ask a person that may not know, and I said, "Did you know Tower 7 fell on 9/11?" They're like, "Oh, did it?" Yeah. I said, "Did you know there's steel buildings?" Okay. Did you know that before 9/11 there was never a steel building that fell in its footprint because of fire? So right there, they're like, "Really?" I go, "Yeah, check this out. You can look up these things yourself. Did you know that Tower 7 was over 300 foot away from the closest tower? In fact,
and not hit by a plane. Yeah.
360 feet. Wasn't hit by a plane. And there was a building between it and the closest building, which is 360 feet away. Did you know that the BBC, 22 minutes before it fell, reported that it fell? And this
Have you been watching my videos?
Right. No. So yeah, I've reported on. In fact, that was in my my original film, 2020 Vision. I was talking about that.
Nice.
Because I've been investigating this stuff for a long time. This is it, but it's so obvious at this point. But I've noticed is when I ask people questions, they may lie to you outwardly, but inside they're answering the truth.
Right.
And if it's not making sense to them, it starts to really get their gears going. So clearly something's going on. So in regards to the Palisades, before the Palisades, I was investigating the Maui fires. In fact, you should, if you haven't already, you should have Michelle Melendez on your program.
I will reach out.
She's an amazing person. She's a friend of mine. She wrote the Great Maui Land Grab, and she's got so much information on that. She's actually dovetailed it into information on the LA fires.
Wow.
So here's what's fascinating. So I just had a hunch, and you know how this works. You kind of just have hunches. And I said, I'm going to check and see if there's anything in regards to smart meters going on. So what I did is I went on Edison's international website. As of last week, it was still up. And I just put in their search bar smart meters. Now, I believe between Ventura County and LA County, there's almost 100 different cities within those two counties. Well, there was about 14 or 15 cities that were listed on Edison International in regards to smart meters. And it was a 2012 proposal of these cities that they wanted to put smart meters in. Ironically, those same 14 or 15 cities were the cities that all burned down.
Oh, just a coincidence.
And I believe I'm a math guy. So to me, mathematically, that's highly suspicious.
To say the least.
And then when you look at the fact that they couldn't get water to the fire hydrants, that the reservoir is drained, and this couple out there, they actually own 70% of the water in that area, and the Resnicks, and they are the largest donor to Gavin Newsom's campaign. Plus, there was 25 years without any fire abatement whatsoever. We need to start really thinking logically here. And we have been conditioned over the last 50 years. We live in I call it a land of chemistry, where everybody wants you to think chemistry and they don't want you to think physics. Right? And I think that's been intentional, because they always throw it's the science. Your doctor knows what to do with your health. Well,
Right.
I'm sorry, less than 3% of a doctor's education is on nutritional or environmental effects on the body, but 90% of what goes on with us is nutritional or environmental effects. So no, your doctor does not know best. So this is a conditioning process they've done with us over the last 50 years.
Yes,
I think so they can control us completely and bring us in a certain direction. I'm not going to have it. And I think we, the people, are starting to wake up to this, and we should just think logically, like, what makes sense? Let's just use Occam's razors.
Yeah.
Let's just do that. Let's just
bring back critical thought. Jesus.
Right. Oh, what a concept, right?
And physics. Yeah. I mean, simple physics.
It's all about physics. And I think they're intentionally pushing us away from physics to make their scientific conclusions, and their chemical conclusions are completely different from what the truth is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of forensics. I'm a big fan of physics. And if you apply those to a lot of what you've been taught about history, you will see that it is merely his story. It really doesn't line up in any way. And they've been doing it for so long. They know just how to wrap these elements of like, oh, like the whole Charlie Kirk thing. And Charlie's bones must have had superhuman bones because he saved lives with his neck. Like, what the are you talking about? It was a 30-06. You're telling us a 30-06 didn't tear. I mean, like, I've shot a 30-06. I've seen what it does to a living creature, and the stories that they make up and tell the public, truly, they must think everyone is just a complete imbecile, ignorant of all physics, ballistics, forensics, anything of the sort, because it's so insulting, the bullshit that they peddle. And people are like, oh, it's because he was such a good Catholic. He saved. I'm like, what? Like, this is magical thinking. It's fantasy thinking, like the magic bullet, another magic bullet. They needed a magic bullet to explain JFK. And everyone's like, yeah, I guess that happens sometimes. Bullets go, like what? I did a special on JFK, and I found, documentaries and documentaries of these witnesses who say, I saw and heard a shot right from the grassy knoll.
That's right.
Over and over. By the end of the documentary, same guy going, well, I thought I heard a shot from the grassy knoll, but they told me it had to come from the bookshop, so I guess I was wrong. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Why would you think you were wrong just because they told you that?
Well, MKUltra is a very powerful tool, and you don't need to chemically induce people to do it. You can do it through propaganda and repetition. I mean, I can tell you, when 9/11, when the towers fell, while they were falling, I'm screaming controlled demolition. But 3 days of me watching the news over and over and over, I was MKUltra, and I'm like, let's go those guys.
Yeah.
Right? And it took me a couple of years to snap out of it. So anybody can, with that repetitive nature, they can feel stupid. You're going to love this. I was at Daily Plaza, and I investigated this myself just a few years ago. And because when I say they, I'm talking about the baddies, they're so arrogant that they put the X's in the street where he was shot at, right?
Wow.
Literally, there's X's in the street. So that's the way they document history, his story. So what I did is I looked at the X's, and I said, this is where I think the shot can come from. And I started looking around. And you know what I saw? What? I saw a street drain right there.
Right there.
And I looked down there, you could put a whole man's body standing up
And they
right
did.
there, and you could put a rifle out. So I laid down, and I had my, I think it was my wife and friends take pictures of me. It was one of our tours that we were doing. And I'm laying down as if I had a rifle.
Wow.
And it goes right on line to where the X of the shot was.
Right.
So I believe personally that one of the shooters, and yes, I'm saying one of, because I think there was probably several, was underneath
absolutely
the drain, sticking a rifle out there because nobody would know, nobody would be able to catch him.
That's right.
And I've been a guy that have walked through the city sewers. I used to do it in San Dimas and Laverne, California when I was growing up. It was something my friends, 16, 17 years old, we were crazy knuckleheads.
Yeah.
And we would go down in the sewers with our little LED watches as a light, right? And I would dare them to go down until we burned out, because then we'd have to walk back in the dark.
Yeah.
But we would do it. So I know the city sewers are real, and you can look out and you can see these. So it was evident to me, and I'm just a dumb white bloke, right? That I'm like, something's going on here. And sure enough, I believe at least one of the shooters were underneath the ground right there. And y'all, if you think I'm crazy, go to Daily Plaza and look yourself, and then suddenly you're going to go, wow. So this is why we're truth tellers now, and we're not conspiracy theorists anymore, because we actually do the work.
Yep. And you know, we know that there was 2 assassins placed in that sewer. And if I'm remembering correctly, that sewer, that was where the grassy knoll was. People were hearing shots, and it came from the grassy knoll because the sewer was right underneath it, you know. And of course, if you look at the physics and ballistics that happened on that day, it is just nonsensical in every way that Lee Harvey Oswald would wait as the president, you know, drove very, 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 very close to him, right? Literally within like 40 yards, and then drive all the way away in order to take a shot from where they said he was. It's just, it's laughable. It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And
I know when I get a hard impact into the back of my head, right? I know my head goes backwards towards the impact too, right?
Common sense.
Are you kidding me? It's just, it's ludicrous.
What a shit show. Tell me about it.
It really is. And I actually believe it started right around the 50s, where they started to really play this game with us. I mean, financially, they've been doing it, you know, since, don't get me started, the Khazarian Mafia is what got me taken off of X with Elon owning it, right?
Yeah, wow.
So don't get me started on that conversation. But
we'll have to have another podcast on that,
Yeah. We've been manipulated for so long, and I believe this is the perfect time for my campaign, because I not only am going to be authentic and tell the truth and not hide from it, I won't be compromised, and I actually have solutions for problems, because I've been a troubleshooter in business for several years. So I believe in finding a simple solution for a complicated problem, and it can be done.
So, you know, with that said, let's, you know, you are in favor of a great many things that I'm like, this is just beyond ridiculous. You know, how can you have an electronic voting system? You know, they used to try to cheat when we had paper ballots, but it was a lot harder for them to get away with it. You know what I mean? Like, we know now that, you know, Kennedy's father was like, you know, trying to manipulate Chicago, and they were putting paper ballots, you know, and the impact that can have is slight. Although the whole notion that it's unaffordable, we can't switch back to paper ballots. It would cost like $112 million. Wait a minute, we give about that much money to Israel every day to children and women, don't we? You know, I mean, it's something around that. Maybe it's not quite that much. Maybe it takes us a month to get that much, but we can't reform our voting system. We can't have an actual democracy without any integrity in the voting system, and we don't have any. You know,
let's say republic, if you don't mind.
Yeah, republic. Thank you for correcting me. The democratic process of voting is the only thing I was referring to. I understand that the word democracy rightfully doesn't appear once in our Bill of Rights or our Constitution, because, well, it's a failed concept in general as far as government goes. But you know, like, how can we trust the results of our elections when they're using black box machines that have been literally proven to be manipulable and hackable?
So I have a friend that was a former CIA contractor, and he told me, he goes, Louis, you know what we used to do? He says the way we took over governments in all over the world is through fake elections. He said we
Mm,
did ballot harvesting and so on and so forth, machines, voting. This is how we manipulated. He goes, now he said, I thought that we were putting in the good guy. He goes, I found out many times we were putting in the
oh,
bad guy. So his heart hurts today because of it, but he does really good work helping people out. So I give him a pass because he thought he
yeah.
was doing the right thing back in the day. But what's interesting about that, so they've been doing that for 40 years. So for us to suddenly be blind that they could do it here
Yeah.
is ludicrous. And it's factual. Venezuela held operated the machines. They were in cahoots, in my opinion, with Serbia via Italy, by the way. So there's a lot of evidence to show this. But it's ludicrous to say that we can't afford paper ballots. We can't not
No,
afford
it's exactly. It's
paper ballots.
absolutely
It's
ludicrous.
just and if you look at the money laundering just from the machines that they purchased anyways,
Mm,
it would take dozens of years to even recoup that through paying for paper ballots. So it's very easy. I think you probably agree with this. Paper ballot, same day voting, same day counting, which can be done. I know a guy that I know, Mark
of
Cook, goes
course it can.
around the world and around the country and proves this. Same day counting could be done. I believe voter ID, if it's a physical ID, not the digital ID that they're trying to
Right.
push us into, a physical ID. All of that's possible. And I'm going to add one thing to it, and I'm getting a lot of traction on this: serial number, because you could put a serial number per precinct, not per person, so they can
Right.
keep their anonymity, but you keep it per precinct. Why does that matter? It's just like our dollar bills. So if you run our money through a machine that detects and see if it's counterfeit, it detects it immediately. There's no counterfeit dollar that can bypass the detection through a machine currently. Physically, they can get past us all the time, even though we have tools and so on and so forth. So what I would recommend is that we have all the paper systems we talked about, and then
Yeah.
after the votes are counted, then you can put it through machine. But the machine only does one thing: is the serial number out of sequence or is it duplicated?
Right.
If it is, you know immediately you have a fraudulent ballot right in your hands.
Right.
These are very simple systems that would work, and it would clean
Simple.
up the elections immediately. Now, why is there so much fight to not
Right.
do that? Well, because if anybody fighting against that, that, by the way, has no party affiliation.
Right.
Democrats and Republicans are both fighting against those systems. The only reason to fight against the systems is because you want a manipulated election.
That's
It's
right.
pretty
They
simple.
need it. They've come to depend on it.
They have to have it.
I think since 2000, since they had to squirm Bush in there, so they would be ready for, the new American project of 9/11 and what was going to happen. I mean, Gore would have been fine, but but everything was made a lot easier with W in there with Cheney because Cheney was one
Exactly.
of the masterminds.
Yeah, I
And
agree. I think they're either Gore or Bush. They're both a controlled asset.
totally.
The difference is the infrastructure that would have surrounded Bush was more supportive of the whole narrative, for sure, or not the narrative of exactly what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And my God, when what happened? That's another podcast we'll have to do because I've done a lot of deep dives on 9/11 and JFK, and it's just so. Let's get into a little more about some of the changes that you are going to make when you're governor. And so obviously it's funny. This just came to mind. Like I just read somewhere that since um, Florida banned geoengineering, aka rails, there hasn't been a single hurricane that made landfall this season. Now, I think that's remarkable. And I've studied geoengineering, and I know it goes way back to Vietnam when we were making it rain on the Vietnamese, and I know there was a a time when they were experimenting with redirecting hurricanes, and they sent one right to the state that I live in, right to Georgia, and it everything up. And Georgia sued the government because they were like, "Hey, dickheads, like you put a big article in the paper saying you're going to redirect this hurricane, and you redirected it right at us, and it destroyed half of our stuff." So they've been doing this for decades. They've had, and their control over it and their ability to manipulate the weather has only increased dramatically. And Florida has put a ban up. I think they're the only state so far, but lo and behold, the weather has changed. Now, there's some publicity happening right now with the amount of aluminum coming out of this geoengineering and programs like what Bill Gates puts up about, they're trying to cool the earth. Well, I mean, it's all bullshit. In my opinion, they're just poisoning people because that's what they do. They profit off sick people. And I was wondering, what your thoughts about the geoengineering issue and the amount of aluminum that, is in people's blood, and where it could possibly be coming from, considering we're not all like drinking Coca-Cola cans and sucking on them. You know what I mean? Like there's no explanation for it.
It's fascinating that aluminum oxide really pairs well with nanobots too. I don't know, graphene oxide also. That's probably just a coincidence. But if you really want to dive deep into this, so the geoengineering obviously is true now that you have states that are outlawing it. So it's no longer a conspiracy theory. What's in it is what's up for debate. We know aluminum oxide is in it and barium is in it, and a couple of, I think there's another one called, is it selenium 327, or I forgot what it was exactly, but we've already found those chemicals in it, and they just happen to be present right after at 12 to 20 times the amount right after the chemtrails were over. Now, there is a debate inside the community because there's some smart people that know about this. One person I know is directly involved in geoengineering. Actually, I should be in squashing it, where they found out private people were doing it. They would go to their house and they'd say, "You're not going to be doing that anymore." Wow. Because they were able to put it in the back of a pickup truck, and that should scare the shit out of everybody.
Wow.
Right? So, but that being said, I've also heard another theory, but they both can be connected, that we can hit a ballistic missile coming into our country if it's at a certain high altitude or a certain low altitude, but the mid altitude we have trouble getting to for some reason. So they've created this way that they can put aluminum oxide and other things up, and they can shoot a laser at that in front of the missile, and when it heats up, it blows that up in the atmosphere without igniting the nuclear warhead. That's
their excuse.
Something that they're saying, right? Yeah. So that's an interesting debate. Either way, they're admitting what? They're admitting that they're putting it into the atmosphere.
Right.
So now we know it's true 100% they're putting it in the atmosphere. Whether we could debate whether it's geoengineering or not, we know there's geoengineering, there's cloud seeding, 100%. That's indisputable. But again, I like to go and look at facts and some other things. So what happened is, after Hurricane Helene, we were going to head up to North Carolina, but we were stuck in Florida at the time. I was on a tour called the Unity Tour. And guess what was coming? Hurricane Milton. Do you remember that? That one that faded out, that everybody talked about. That's going to be a Cat 5. That's going to destroy everything in Florida. So what I decided to do is I went on to the hurricane trackers, the official ones, not a conspiracy theorist, the official ones. And I tracked Hurricane Milton. What I saw would have changed anybody's mind. I already knew there was weather manipulation, but what I saw was clear as a bell. So number one, I think there's only been 2 hurricanes that ever have started on that side of the Gulf, on the west side, and traveled all the way to the east side. Only twice in history. This one, the Milton, you could see it. and I'd like to go on the website today if I can find it, but you can see the tracking, and this is amazing. It went like this. It started in the Gulf over there. It went up, it went down, it went sideways, back, up, down, and it was like
Wow.
this. It was almost like they were hitting it from two sides trying to get it. And then it hit this one pattern that it tends to hit. And when it hits into there, you've seen, because these have come generally, they come from south to north.
Right.
This one was coming west to east. It hit that pattern, and then it took off in a trajectory heading towards Florida. That's impossible.
Right. No, there's nothing natural about that.
There's a natural event. That's impossible.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're to the point where these Satanists just have to tell on themselves.
Yeah.
So they keep it out there because that cleanses their karmic contract that they have. Because the evidence is out there now, and they're not even burying it. I could probably still go to that weather website and find it. I know I can go to Edison International and find the on the smart meters. So that's fascinating to me. But it was clearly that Milton was clearly a manipulated hurricane. And the way that Hurricane Helene stalled above land, which has never happened before either. I'm just saying, come on, guys.
Yeah.
When are we going to start asking the right questions?
Exactly. You know, everything is not a fluke of wild, unnatural patterns and, you know, critical thinking questions. The problem is the public is generally ignorant. You know, like I tell people all the time, like, if you understand that we've had the power to make it rain since Vietnam, that we could cloud seed, then what does that tell you about the last 45, 50 years of unchecked wildfires throughout the United States? What does it tell you about that? If we had the ability to cloud seed in Vietnam and we did it simply and whenever we wanted, why wouldn't they at least attempt to bring rain to these drought areas in order to keep the fire at least quasi-contained, if not put out? Why? Why wouldn't they? I understand it's not always possible to use some of this technology to create rain, but if they can create freaking snow in Dubai, I'm pretty sure we have the technology to make it rain in some of the craziest places where you never imagined rain could come. And why wouldn't they do that for the people? Because they don't want people to know they've had the power and technology all along, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and it's also a matter of control, right? Because when you keep people in what they do is when you keep people poisoned and you keep them in fear, and you keep them sick, and you keep them inundated with crazy Candy Crush, Facebook, and all this other stuff. What happens is you're dumbing down the pineal gland, when the pineal gland is our direct resonance to discernment, right? So if we can keep our pineal gland, they say whatever it is, if you can keep the pineal gland not active, suddenly we become robots in the flesh, and it's very easy to control us doing this. So for people who don't think this is intentional, just do some research. Don't listen to me. Don't even listen to Faust. Just go ahead and check it out for yourself and do some research. What is it? Maybe you don't know what the pineal gland is.
Yeah.
Research it. It's a pretty good little teeny organ about the shape of a peanut.
Very important transponding organ, important. Which most people don't realize they've been drinking fluoridated tap water, which happens to be the primary calcifier of our pineal gland, as far as I understand it. And then you go ahead and research, nowadays people are, I remember I said something to a friend of mine. I said, he mentioned that he gives his kids fluoride supplements. And I was like, what did you say? He was like, yeah, he's like, I used to take them. And I was like, Jesus, don't you know that fluoride is on like close to lead? I mean, it's not quite but it's definitely right next to arsenic, and it's not far from lead and has similar effects. I was like, you just say you're giving your kids fluoride supplements? And he's like, listen, I don't subscribe to conspiracy theories. I was like, okay, we should probably end our conversation then, because
or maybe subscribe to facts. I mean,
yeah, maybe just look up a simple toxicology chart and look up where fluoride lands because it's
That's
right
right.
next to arsenic. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. So
Unbelievable.
fluoride is interesting. Fluoride's in the mainstream now.
Yeah.
And I believe it's in the mainstream because there's something in our water that is a lot more detrimental to us. And that's something called deuterium.
Ooh, deuterium. You're the only person I know besides myself who's ever spoken that word.
Really? I actually did a whole I did um a documentary on it, and
Hmm.
it was a pretty deep documentary, and I think it was 2000, probably 20. I think it was just about
Wow.
five years ago, and it got taken down immediately. The good news is it was stolen by 30 other accounts. They even
Nice.
covered up my logo on it, which is fine, and it got millions and millions of views
Nice.
because of that. So obviously, I have to host everything on my websites now because they get taken
Right.
down all the time. But deuterium's an incredible story. You and I could probably have
Yeah.
our next time out. We can talk about deuterium and some other stuff because that is a passion of mine to disclose what that's all.
Wow. That's amazing. You're the first. I've never heard anyone talk. I mean, I learned about it at a health convention, because there was an exhibitor there selling what he called light water, which
Mhm.
he had developed after learning about deuterium because his wife was sick, and he l- created this process of stripping the water of deuterium, and then was only giving his wife this deuterium free water, and she made an incredible recovery from whatever was going on with her, and now he sells this water, which he is highly processed, and he calls it light water, LITE,
Yeah.
water, and I used to get boxes of it. It's not cheap, but I'll tell you what, you can run it on any test of purity. It's going to come out, 100%. There's just nothing. There's nothing that compares to it, as far as I know. And I'm a big water connoisseur. Like, I'm always drinking some kind of special water. But listen. We're going to have to do another podcast just on that, because I love that subject, and I understand that you're also passionate about it. I mean, just for people who are just curious, um, like what's a paragraph summary of deuterium that you would say? And it's like the radioactive element that is found. It's found in nature naturally, right? But it's also found in it happens to water after a period of time. How else would you describe it?
Yeah. So it's a molecule. It's a ionic portion that's actually attached to the hydrogen molecule. It's almost hidden. It's almost hidden there, and it's in all water on planet Earth except two places. One is in at this level. When I mean all water, so all water has 155 parts per million of deuterium in it, except two places on Earth. One is in Russia, and one is, I believe, in Tibet. And the reason why those are lower in deuterium, they're DDW, which is deuterium depleted water, is because what it does is it it cascades over ice before the water comes
Mm,
out, and deuterium freezes at a lower temperature than our standard H2O does.
hmm.
And therefore it brings some of the deuterium with it and the rest comes out. So it's depleted. The life extension or life there at those two places are over 100 years on average.
Wow.
And that should tell people a lot. So it's a phenomenal thing to learn about, but it is in all of our water. It's
Yeah.
not, you cannot avoid it. There are processes to get rid of a lot of it. Now, there is some smart people that say we need deuterium, but
Mm,
not at the levels that it is
right.
at. It should be somewhere around 120 instead of 155. So
Okay.
it's fascinating to talk about, but it's real and it's testable. So even scientists can't dispute this because you can test it.
Yeah, I love when that happens, when they come up against it like that.
Right.
Um, so I'm going to fire off some political questions. So just so people get an idea of just
Sure.
how incredibly savvy you are, and willing you are to tell the truth about what we see every day, when most politicians simply talk around it and pretend that it's not an issue. we're sending billions of dollars in foreign wars, which all of us on social media have seen the devastating consequences and loss of life from. And yet the people of Los Angeles have been looking at an increasing homeless population, which has also found a way to do nothing with billions and billions of dollars and ideas about what to do with the incredible homeless population. And like, why are we, how do you circumvent that as governor?
Well, first thing you need to do is be honest with the public. And I'm going to ask them to ask a question. How is it possible that more money is being poured in to the homeless issue now than any time in history, yet the homeless population is growing at the same time?
Yeah.
And I let that resonate for a second. I said, I want you to tell me, how is that possible?
Right.
They don't have an answer, because
Same
the
with cancer.
only answer is there's corruption, money laundering going on in regards to that. It's pure theft. The baddies, as I call them, constantly use an issue that's tugging on our heartstrings, and it's for them to steal money. That would be homelessness. That would be Israel. That would be
Yep.
Ukraine. That would be climate change. I mean, it's constant. They've been doing this for a lot of years. Is they use our emotions
Yep.
to line their pocketbooks and buy their mansions. So I'm a solution-based guy, though. So I'd say, what can be done? I said, the first thing we need to do, which nobody does, is we need to humanize homelessness.
Yeah.
These are real people that we're
They
talking
are.
about. And there could be some baddies out there. It is what it is. But the reality is, you know what? The first thing I would attack is, as I would say, there should never be a veteran or a senior on the street, period,
No.
end of story. We need to handle that.
Absolutely.
We should honor our seniors to the highest level like we used to. That's who we used to get our knowledge from.
Right.
And we should honor our vets, because whether it was a bad war or not,
That's right.
they went there for the good purpose
That's
to
right.
protect our country. So that would be first. I'm willing to fund that. And I don't believe in pouring money into a lot of programs, right? But I'm
Right.
definitely willing to fund that. The other thing we need to do is we need to evaluate every situation separately, and we can put them in categories. Are they chemically dependent?
Right.
Okay,
Are they mental health?
that would be a separate category.
Right.
Right. So we say chemically dependent. Okay, these go into this box. Let's see if we can help treat them, and then put them on programs to move
Right.
them off of the street. Do they choose to be homeless?
Right.
That's a completely another category
Absolutely.
that we'd have to deal with it differently. Are they mentally unable
Right.
to really run their own lives? Are they a harm to anybody else or themselves?
Right.
Because, and I say this as a joke, but it makes a lot of sense. We need to make mental institutions great again.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, one of the things I did not like what Reagan did is he got rid of the mental institutions. Now,
Yeah.
part of the reasons to do that, I was told, and I get it, is because we weren't treating the people properly. We were pumping them with Thorazine, and they were walking around like zombies throughout. So just because you have a mental problem doesn't mean you're not a human.
Right.
We need to treat them with respect and care, but yet, unless they can prove that they can be a productive member of society and not a harm to themselves or others, they need to stay in an institution.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. Nobody's going to shame me for saying that.
Right.
Right? Those simple solutions, and we talked about this before, simple is the way to go. I always say, if it's simple, it's God's work. If it's messy, something else is going on. Right? These are very simple solutions. If we address them like this, we could clean the homeless population up really quick.
Yeah.
Now, when we also bring the economy up and not have it a controlled economy by a deep state sewer rat cabal, guess what? There's a lot more people that would not be homeless also. So
Absolutely.
it's something that we can address, very simple to address, but we have to be honest with it and address the situation with compassion and honesty at the same time. But stealing money is not compassionate.
No.
But your Marxist left will say, we're throwing money at it, so we're the most compassionate in the world. Well, no, you're making
As if
it
that's
worse
ever solved anything.
because people steal it. Yeah, it doesn't. It lines pocketbooks.
Yep.
But people feel good about themselves when they go to bed, I guess.
That's right. I mean, that's like I tell people about the recycling program in the United States and what a complete travesty it is.
Oh Lord, don't get me started.
Like if people understood that the entire program was developed as a psyop so that people would stop complaining about the level of plastic pollution and not feel so bad about, we'll
Yeah,
just recycle it. But it's not being recycled. It's being, shipped off to third world countries. It's being burned into the atmosphere. It's being dumped into the water, buried. It's poisoning everything. But people don't complain about that because they feel good recycling. And that's, I'm if only, particularly in the United States, people understood the joke. They would demand that these companies, which of course, then you can talk about the fact that plastic is a petroleum, a subsidiary of the oil companies
of
because
course.
it's petroleum based. So it's all tied together. What a mess.
I
So
have a solution for that too, though.
do you tell me?
Yeah, there's already a company out there that I've looked at that can take all waste,
Hmm.
even lithium batteries, and they can turn it into pure clean energy. So when they burn it down at such a high level and they have this filtration system and they've tested, so they test the exhaust that comes out of it,
Right.
it's the cleanest air you can imagine
Wow.
at a 97.5% rate. So they can attach themselves to a landfill
Hmm.
and give us free energy that will energize a whole city. And
Wow.
there's 2.5% waste that comes out of that. And another portion of that, they actually have proven that it's the highest grade fertilizer that they can
Get
they
out
can
of
have.
here. No wonder no
Seriously,
one's heard of them. They probably
it's nobody's
fucking
going to hear of them, right?
no, no. They
But
probably
I've got
blackballed
the
them.
details. This is part of our plan,
Wow.
and we're going to do that and possibly put in SMR technology, which is small underground modular reactors that have no nuclear waste problem. They don't have any issues, no
Hmm.
overheating issues, and you can get probably 12 of those all through California to power California
Wow.
using the same infrastructure we have now. And then another day we'll start talking about 0 point energy, which is
Oh
real
yeah.
also.
We can have a whole podcast about that. That's I tell people, why should you care about disclosure? Why should you care about the cover up that's been going on? Because what they're covering up is not just the fact that we've been accompanied by and visited by extraterrestrial races who have direct involvement in humanity, but the ships that they rode in on, the technology that they brought with us is the bulk of the reason why the Rockefellers and these families, they formed countless NGOs to handle this issue, to keep the public from learning that the craft that ET flew in on doesn't have an exhaust pipe, okay? And that energy, we've already mastered it. We mastered it back in the early 50s, that's how we have our own little fleet, which is what most people are seeing in the sky. And they just put out that documentary called The Age of Disclosure, which of course is, if you don't know anything about the issue, it's a nice little introduction, but it's all with the echo of, well, this could be a national security threat. Yeah, because we have one more thing that's invisible to be afraid of. We should be afraid of what? Our ships that you're flying, like the hundreds of them that they've reproduced, triangles, tic tacs, saucers, you name it.
I do believe those are all government built ships.
Absolutely. Lockheed, Northrop. I mean, and the worst part about it is, they could. It's just something has to be done, because they could pull off a false flag, and blame the Martians, and people would buy it hook, line, and sinker. All of a
Sure.
sudden,
Yeah.
an ET is going to fire a laser at a building, and people are
Mhm.
going to be like, "Oh my God, this is the end times," and we have to unite under one government to fight ET. That's what they're going to.
And they do predictive
They're going to try it if they
programming.
can.
Yeah, they predictive programmers.
Yeah.
A movie I actually liked is all predictive programming. That's Independence Day, right?
Oh yeah.
So they show that. And then there's something called Project Bluebeam. You can get into that. So they're literally setting up the systems
Yeah.
to do that. Now, I'm gonna say I don't even care if there's ETs or not.
Right.
Just it's inconsequential. But I like to talk about things that actually make a lot of sense to people. Most people agree that there are some form of spacecraft that we don't know out there.
Right.
right? Wouldn't it make more sense that those are man-made spacecraft
Yeah.
that we're seeing over and over? I can tell you because I've talked to people about this directly. Area 51 was not about alien aircraft. It was about as a testing facility for our aircraft and processes, let's say processes that they're working on that are 50, sometimes 100 years more
Oh,
advanced
yeah.
than we see
Still.
today.
Yeah. And that was 50, 75 years ago.
Right. And if you know about an Area 51, that means there's a 52, 53, and 54.
That's right. People don't think about that. The SMRs, what was the number? 12 or whatever. SP40, like,
Right.
39 other simian. Yeah. I wonder, I'm like, listen, don't you understand that this is about patents? It's about money. It's about
Mhm.
control. Like that you can't patent something that's natural. Do you understand? You can't have control of it. Like
Exactly right.
when the whole debacle hit, God, I didn't buy any of it for a single second. And of course, I was living in Manhattan at the time in 2020, and I was very outspoken. And I quickly realized just how far gone most people were, at least at that time. Then fast forward 2 years later, people are much more awake now, because every time they try to pull a stunt like this, it's like they kind of they show their hand. They have to, and it's then they hope people forget, and then they'll wait 20 years and try it again, hopefully 20 years. But why are the parasite controllers so terrified of a united citizenry? Why should people stop aligning with red and blue bullshit and start uniting against the problem, which is these what do you refer to them as? The
parasite controllers.
Yeah, I call them the parasite class. That's
Oh, do you? I'm good. We're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's exactly what they are. So it's pretty simple. If we go back history about 250 years, you had this guy, somebody called him John Adams, another one called it George Washington, another one was Thomas Jefferson. All three of them, in their own separate words, referred to a two-party system as the death of America. Thomas Jefferson went as far to said, if I had to choose between picking a party and going to heaven, I'm not going to heaven.
Right.
So that should be a clue for us. We're in a two-party construct right now. Now, why is that? Now, I can say my value set aligns closer to what the Republicans say, but not what they do.
Not what they do.
What they write down, right? The psyop that they say they're for, I align closer to that for sure. That being said, though, we have to understand why there's a two-party system and two-party control. Because where there's division, they can conquer.
That's right.
So it's constant division. You're looking at actors in Congress. They're playing a part.
Yeah.
The same thing with judges and attorneys. They all golf together. They all eat together. They party together. And then they pretend to be a foe. Same thing in Congress. Most of them hang out together, so on and so forth, or buddy up together. And then what happens? It's all fake, phony, it's false. It doesn't exist. We are living under a fake construct of governing. So how do you get around that? Well, you have to become personally sovereign. And I'm not talking about go do your paperwork. If you want to go do paperwork, you go do that. But you have to claim your sovereignty in yourself.
That's right. I know what you mean.
So
literally. Not just civilly, but yeah.
Right. You say, I'm sovereign. I'm not going to put up with the bullshit. I'm autonomous. Now, how do they keep you from being autonomous? Well, they could give us 0-point energy. Right. So everybody could have energy producing. What that means is, guys, you can produce energy right at your home, and nobody has any control over it. That would be that would probably be the death of the controllers.
It would be, yeah.
Because we can do anything that we want when you can produce your own energy.
That's right.
So that's the last thing that they're gonna offer you.
Oh yeah.
So that's complete control. The other way you can do it, and you kind of touched on this, and I feel blessed that about 35 years ago, I got in a serious accident. I've been in several serious accidents. That's a whole nother story. But I got in a serious accident, and I ended up having to see a chiropractor for my back. He taught me in 1 minute about Big Pharma that blew me away.
Wow.
And he says, Lewis, here's why you don't want to look into taking drugs. I go, why is that? He goes, In order for them to make money, they must have a patent. In
Hmm.
order for them to have a patent on a drug, they must synthetically reproduce it so they can have a string
That's
that
right.
can be patented. He says everything you put in your body that's synthetic is your body rejects it as a poison.
Mm,
Therefore, it has a side effect. And when it has a side effect, they'll give you another synthetic medicine to
that's
take
right.
there. You go down a dirty rabbit hole that you can't get out after when you start relying on big pharma. That was 35 years ago.
Wow.
And that's
Chiropractors are amazing like that.
amazing, right? And that
Yeah.
stuck with me. I'm like, wow, it makes so much sense. And
Yeah.
then I started really investigating. And what do I find out? I find out everywhere on Earth there is some form of a cure,
Yep.
right? That's natural,
Right.
but they don't make money on nature.
Nope.
They have to reproduce it so they can make money.
That's right.
So
And they'll go out of their way to kill a cure, just like they will anything else that's a solution that's going to cost them trillions over the long run.
yeah, they'll go out of their way to kill a person that
That's right.
develops the cure
Don't think
also.
for a second, it's a travesty, this society that we're living in, and we gotta turn it around. It's going to take people like you to do it. I always tell people, I'm like, listen, these families that have this control system in place, they raise their children with the belief system that that eugenics is vital, that they're doing their job as the caretakers of the cattle that is the human race. Bill Gates is on record, I think it's still in the archives, talking about, when he was 10 years old, his parents sat him down and started to explain to him the importance of eugenics. I'm like, don't you understand what that means? That this is a man who is suddenly, he's gone from a software thief, billionaire, no coincidence, his family was plugged in, to the biggest health advocate, and is suddenly an expert and making all this money off that industry. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. If he's a eugenicist, then he wants population control, period. That's what eugenicists believe in. They believe some genes are superior to others,
Right.
and most of the time those genes happen to have a lot of money and more white skin. Go figure. So why are we listening to a man who has openly spoken about the vitality of eugenics in his family and in his dogma that he's indoctrinated into, and letting him tell us what is right and what we need to be healthy? Like, are we out of our minds? I don't
We
know.
are. We
Yeah.
are actually, yeah. Well, I mean, look at we listened to Margaret Sanger, who is a racist and a
Yeah.
eugenicist, right? And she created Planned Parenthood.
Parenthood. Yeah.
It's madness.
Every inner
And
city had one. Go figure.
yeah, go for it. But we're doing them a favor,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's crazy.
So we got to touch on this because I know that you've done a lot of work on this, and I don't, we're just gonna have a part 2 and 3 to this podcast, but why haven't we launched a full investigation into CPS and the foster care system to expose the obstructors of that are put in place to protect these rings? And I know that you're passionate about this issue, and California is one of the, if not maybe the worst state as far as child goes. Like, what do you think? Do you think that there ever can be a real investigation that is done?
Well, there can and there will be. In fact, I'll soon be launching a website that's about exposure. The problem is it's a system and it's a money-based system. So I'll give you the foundation of it. So if you rip a child out of the arms of a parent and put them in the foster care system, suddenly the whole system is worth about $100,000 a year. People get paid off of that. Right. We already have shown that there are illegals running foster care homes. Right. So there's money. There are attorneys that are in it get a lot of money. The administrators in it get a lot of money. And the judges are the biggest obstructor and the biggest contributor to this, right? So they're the obstructor to us doing it right, and they're the contributor to us doing it wrong. Now, let me put this in perspective, and this statistic will blow people away. There's already been studies that over 90% of the children that have been put into foster care or taken from their homes from CPS, over 90%, $2,500 and some education would have prevented that from happening.
Oh my God.
Because a lot of times it's just they don't have enough food on the table. Maybe they don't clean the house well enough, or whatever it is. $2,500. So if we can put $2,500 towards education and helping a family out, maybe in a time of need, and retraining them how to be a better parent, right?
Yeah.
Instead of $100,000, I don't know. That seems like common sense to me.
Yeah.
You're not damaging the child, because no matter
That's right.
if the child is not being abused, like physically abused, it is traumatic.
Oh my God.
Lifetime trauma
And
to take that child away from a parent.
absolutely. And it's, you know, when I read some of the stories, I'm like, what? You know, I just, sometimes they'll use, sometimes I really think that, you know, they have plants and they're, you know, they wait for a kid to come in and say the right thing. And then they're just doing it so they could take that kid and put him in the system, and get the money or traffic, you know, whatever it is, because sometimes you learn about the reasons why they're taking these kids from their parents, and you're like, wait a minute, how in what world is that rational or legal, sane? You know what I mean? Like, what right do they have to? You know, it's like
not.
It's crazy. That's a whole nother can of worms that needs to be fucking.
I can give you a case out of LA County that'll blow your mind.
Tell me.
And I'm starting to really get to know this guy. So a guy named Adam Vina, right? And I'll summarize the story. He can tell it a lot better, and it's really tragic. But he had an ex-wife, or I don't know if it was a wife, but whoever, his ex, right, that he had a child with. And he started getting images of his little boy, I think 2 or 3 at the time, wearing dresses. So he wasn't happy with that. So he texted her back with probably some ripe language.
Yeah.
How that is uncalled for. We can't do that, so on and so forth. So they used that to completely remove the child from any custody or visitation from him. And then they use this moving forward. By this way, this judge has a history of it, and we're going to expose this judge. They then use that against him to justify doing a hormonal replacement, and the child, I think, is maybe only 5 or 6 right now. And they're talking about doing this. He's trying to stop this, but he's not getting any traction because they use whatever that text message was, his passionate text message, to that. Now, interesting enough, the original judge on the case was an advocate in a group. I believe he was president for minors transitioning.
Oh, wow. Talk about a conflict of interest.
And who they replaced that judge with, I believe, was the vice president of the same group.
Jesus Christ.
This is the madness that we're dealing with right now. And so what we are going to do before I'm even in the governor's mansion is we're going to start exposing this and let the people deal with it.
That's right.
Right. And because the fact everybody else is covering it up for fear, whatever reason, we're not going to do that. We're going to do exactly the opposite. When everybody's running in one direction, I figured a long time ago I should be running in the opposite way.
Right. I mean, people are more than ever ready for the cold, hard truth. You know, I mean,
I agree.
There's not much that's going to surprise anyone anymore. And yet, of course, you know, we're dealing with decades of conditioned apathy and among many other things, you know, the divide and conquer, the survival mode that they keep people in, the calcification of the pineal gland, the constant, you know, strain and stress of debt. You know, it's all part of this same system that keeps people from, you know, being able to process and think critically. Because if you're not sure if you're going to be able to feed your children, that's the one thing that's got to be on your mind. You're not going to concern you can't be concerned with, like, you know, like I talk to people all the time here in Georgia, and I'm like, are you going to vote? And they're like, Hell no, I ain't gonna vote. It doesn't make a difference anyway. It never had. People are so kind of they've just had it with the run of the mill politicians, and they don't believe what they say. But you're definitely a horse of a different color, and I have a feeling we could talk for hours, and I have a feeling that we're gonna. But so I want to give you a little more of a chance. We've talked a lot about some things, but the fact that you're willing to speak about these things speaks volumes as to the kind of character and candidate that you are running for governor. And I don't think there's ever been a candidate quite like you. I can say that. And so I'll definitely, be talking about you. And hopefully this podcast gives people a great inside view on what the things that you're willing to talk about, and you're not scared. So couple more questions. Why? How can we trust a system where the media refuses? I mean, the media is essentially a watchdog, damage control for these same families that puppet government. How do we get around that?
Well, this is about as grassroots as it gets. So here's a good example. So during COVID and all the censorship that I'm sure you remember was going on, I was involved with a lot of friends and people where their sites were just getting taken down, shadow banned, and everything else. So I believe in simple solutions, and I'm a troubleshooter guy. I go, "Okay, how do we get the message out when that is going on?" I said, well, I'm a marketer. I said, maybe there's some guerrilla marketing tactics that we can do. So what I created, that site was called Freedom in Action. So what we did is we took all the videos and we motivated people all over the planet. If you see a video or a document that you think may get deleted, send it to us. We'll house it on our server, right? So we did that, but then we said, okay, how are we going to get the word out? Because when we talk about this website, we get taken down anyways. So what I did is I created this, and these are Post-its. So this was one of our biggest items. People all over the place were putting these Post-its up.
We need stickers. We got to make stickers out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a Post-it. Boop.
Nice.
Literally, it's just sticks right up like it's sticking on my thumb right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then this would get people's attention. I do the same thing for my campaign right now. Different color scheme, different issues because it's for the campaign. So we have to do this.
Yeah.
I'll give you an idea real quick. So there's this guy, Steve Hilton, that's also running for governor of California that many people may have heard about. No shade on Steve, but I'll tell you this, is before the debate that I just did with him on November 8th, virtually every news media would bring up Hilton's doing this, or Hilton's over here, or Hilton's campaigning, Hilton's doing this. But ironically, he does the debate with 13 candidates, and not one of those news and media, not even the conservative ones, mention it.
Wow.
And that should be a question to everybody. Why would they talk about him constantly, and he's on this debate with myself and others,
right?
And it's total crickets. That should be a concern for people immediately. It should be a concern for people that my team has applied to go on to Wikipedia, and we've been banned from Wikipedia.
Jesus.
Banned. So we're trying to work some aspects to get back on there in legal aspects. They should be concerned that Ballotpedia keeps coming back with us with other things that we have to do, and we've been approved but never made their website. That should be a concern. It should be a concern that no local media, none, in all throughout California has even have one article mentioning our candidacy, although we are told that we won the debate.
Right.
That should be a concern for people. This is the type of things we're working on. So what we do is we need social media to just blow up in regards to our campaign. Hopefully this will help.
Absolutely.
Obviously. And then we need to take out of the box thinking. Well, I've always been an out of box thinker. So I can tell you one thing, we have more volunteers than probably every campaign combined now. Because the grassroots people that want somebody that's just speaking truth and authenticity is huge. So what we're rolling out in January are going to knock people's socks off. I'm sure everybody's going to hear about this guy they don't know about anymore. but we have real world solutions. So I'm just not a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. We also look at facts, fact based solutions that work.
Hmm.
Nobody's put all their solutions on the website. We are doing that. We're not
Right.
afraid to run it. People said, they're going to steal your ideas. I go, great, they're time stamped.
Right. Right.
So let them steal away. It works to our advantage. And ultimately, I don't care about being governor, Faust. I care about us living in the most glorious state and country that has the most healthy, vital people without corruption. If
Right.
that takes me doing something else, great. The end result is most important.
Right.
I had a discussion with God, and He said it's governor. So that's what I'm doing.
Nice. That's amazing to hear you say. What a breath of fresh air. If if more people understood that is the most important thing, and whatever we have to do, however we have to shuffle ourselves in order to make sure that literally our seniors are not sleeping on the cold streets, and that our veterans are being taken care of, and that the kids aren't going to bed hungry in this country with the amount of abundance and food that we have. That is how we should reshuffle ourselves as a society. We have, and we're going to have to start with a level of corruption that has become inherent and intertwined in all aspects of government. And either that, or it's going to be the end of government. One or the other. One of the two things has to happen. Either we have to reconfigure everything so that it's true public servants, and there's no conflict of interest legally allowed, or it's not. It's going to end up being ended in a revolution. So, people like you give me hope that we can achieve this transition, with the backing of the people, we the people, and take back our country from these freaking parasites that have just, as if they didn't have enough. It's just insatiable, the amount of control and money and greed and power, and constantly finding new ways to try to control everyone. It's just mind blowing in what they've gotten away with. But I'm saying enough is enough. Take the spoils of the centuries of theft and warmongering and go and live out in your estates. We need to get them out of government and get the money out of government and free ourselves of the notion that we're in a debt to fake money. Clearly people forget we're making this all up. We, the human race, are making this all up. So we're all pretending that we're in a $37 trillion debt. We know how good we are at making money disappear. Why not make the debt disappear? What the are we doing? Why don't we just work it out with the rest of the countries? Everyone will be very happy to be debt free, will they not? Except for the people who already have all the money, who the debt's owed to, and they can go themselves. They don't need it. They're going to be just fine. Like this would solve so many problems, and then we can rearrange a financial system that actually has accountability, checks and balances. That it's not. It doesn't need a bailout or a depression or a housing market bubble or a war or pandemic every 5 years just to keep it going. It'd be nice to maybe start from a place a little more, let's say, foundationally strong. Anyway.
No, you're right. Well, those that hold the debt are in control. Those that are under the debt are controllable. So
Yeah.
that's the whole purpose for a debt, false or not false. That's the reason for
Absolutely.
it. It's like if you can constantly tell people that the earth is going to burn up and all the water is going to evaporate in 20 years, well, then you can control them. So it's control and fear, and it's something that I'm addressing publicly, right? I think there isn't a time for a candidate like myself, but there's definitely a time for this. But we're going up against an infrastructure that's been here, I would say, over 1,000 years, by the way. I think it's a lot longer than most people think. And it's going to take a lot to bust it down, but it's time. And I think the people are ready for it.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody that's close to my campaign said, Lewis, you're not really a governor, you're a guardian. And I said, I'll take it, because it's just about what we the people want.
Yeah. I was just talking to G. Edward Griffin, who wrote The Creature of Jekyll Island. And he said, we don't need a government. We need a protectorate.
Yep, protectorate. Yep. I
That's
agree.
it. He said, we don't need anyone telling us what to do, but the government, if it's going to be in any way, shape, or form, should solely be a protectorate, and facilitate for people, And I was like, it's a perfect way to put it, But I want to give you a chance to end this podcast. Tell people where they can follow you, where they can find you, and then we'll arrange to, because as you continue to campaign, I want to have you back on, and we'll dive into very specifically a lot of the political issues, which I want you to get. I want to get your passion out there and get, so people get familiar with what you're running on and what you bring to the table. So, but we'll wrap this one up today, and I want to give you a chance to tell everyone where to find you and close this out with a message to them.
Sure. Well, you can find me at hermsforcali.com. That's HERMSFORCALI.com. And my other platform, which is ScrewBigGov, will be linked to that. So you'll be able to get to that also. But hermsforcali.com. Volunteer, donate, whatever you need to do. But at minimum, check it out to get the information. So you're going to find out, oh, this cat's for real. And there's real world solutions on the website. I think what we need to realize, Faust, and we've been obstructed for this thinking, but we, the people, really do hold all the power.
That's right.
When we organize together and we understand that we have the power, we can take the power back anytime we feel like it. And it is that simple. And I say often, if it's simple, it's God's work. If it's messy, it's something else that's going on. The challenge is we be so conditioned to think that we don't have the power that we don't access the power.
That's right.
All we have to do is change our mindset. Change our mindset, manifest our destiny, and we've got this.
I love those are magic words to me, brother. That is amazing. I'm so grateful that we've been introduced, and I'm going to help champion you as much as I can in these coming weeks and months, and keep doing what you're doing, man. We're gonna have to talk again. We're gonna cut a bunch of clips from this for social media, help you get the word out, and I appreciate your time very much.
I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to get the message out.
Absolutely. So everyone stay tuned. Everyone who's listening on YouTube, thank you guys so much. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. We deal with a tremendous amount of algorithmic suppression because of the content we like to put out. So we need you to share this video. Make sure you're subscribed. It's the only way we're going to grow. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes and you enjoy the podcast, please take a moment to give us a couple stars, if you will. Drop a comment. We're trying to grow, and we're meeting a lot of resistance because of the nature of our content. So we appreciate your help, and we appreciate you listening. Louis, thank you again, brother, for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Take care, man.